David walk through security. He turned back, blew me a kiss, and gave me that warm, comforting smile I had trusted blindly for 7 long years. "I'll text you the second I land in Chicago," his message read a minute later. I smiled, walking back to my car, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. But 10 minutes into my drive home, my phone buzzed. It was Maria, our quiet, fiercely loyal housekeeper of 5 years. When I answered, all I heard was her hyperventilating, choked up crying. "Olivia, please listen to me," she whispered, her voice trembling with sheer terror. "Do not go back to the house. I'm hiding in the garden shed. Don't turn into the driveway. Just pull over, open your phone, and check the living room security cameras right now." I pulled over. With shaking hands, I opened the app, pressed play, and my heart completely stopped. My name is Olivia, and at 36 years old, I thought I had built the perfect fortress against the tragedies of my past. When my father passed away 7 years ago, he left me his entire life's work, a thriving real estate empire, and our beautiful family estate. I was completely devastated, drowning in a sea of grief, when David stepped into my life. He was charming, attentive, and seemingly devoted to keeping me safe. He became my anchor. Because I trusted him blindly, I eventually handed over the management keys to my father's business, believing we were building our future together. Our marriage felt like a fairy tale, a seamless partnership where I was protected and cherished. But as I sat pulled over on the side of that dusty road, staring at the glowing screen of my phone, the illusion of my perfect life shattered into a million jagged pieces. The contrast was physically sickening. Just 10 minutes ago, I had been breathing in the scent of his expensive cologne, feeling the warmth of his lips on my cheek as I kissed him goodbye at the airport departure gate. He was supposed to be boarding a flight to Chicago for a critical business merger. Yet, there he was on my live security feed, walking through our front door with a key I didn't know he had, accompanied by a person I never expected to see again. My heart hammered violently against my ribs as a cold, paralyzing dread took complete hold now. I held my breath, my eyes glued to the screen as the live feed from our living room camera buffered and then sharpened. There was my husband, David. He had never boarded that flight. He was standing right in the center of our home, his coat thrown carelessly onto the sofa. But it was the woman standing next to him that made my blood run cold. It was Evelyn, my estranged half-sister. She had vanished from my life 3 years ago after a bitter dispute over our father's estate, yet here she was, standing in my sanctuary. They weren't just talking, they were systematically destroying the room. I watched in absolute horror as David knelt down, pulling a crowbar from a duffel bag and prying up the mahogany floorboards near the fireplace, the exact spot where my father had once kept a small floor safe. Evelyn was tossing books from the shelves, her hands frantic as they searched for the physical deed to our estate and my father's original, unamended will. They were desperately hunting for the keys to my entire life. Then, right in front of my eyes, David stopped. He grabbed Evelyn by the waist, pulling her close, and kissed her with a familiar passion that felt like a physical blow to my chest. He whispered something in her ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. It was a chilling laugh of pure triumph. They were actively working together, and I was their main target. My hands shook so violently that I could barely tap Maria's contact. When she answered, her breath was still ragged, coming in shallow, terrified, choked gasps. "Maria, I see them," I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of the betrayal. "I see David and my sister Evelyn on the cameras. What is happening?" "Oh, thank God you looked, Olivia." Maria sobbed quietly, keeping her voice low in the dark garden shed. "They arrived together barely 5 minutes after you drove away. They didn't even realize I was still in the guest house. I went to the main house to put away some laundry, and I heard them talking. They weren't just looking for papers, Olivia, they were celebrating." My throat went completely dry. "Celebrating what?" "They have a legal document," Maria whispered, her words chilling me to my core. "I heard David boasting and telling Evelyn that they successfully forged your signature on a power of attorney. They're going to claim that you are mentally unfit to manage your own affairs. But it is so much worse than that. If you walk through that front door right now, you aren't going to find a husband welcoming you home. David has a private medical transport team on standby down the street. They have fabricated medical records, using your intense grief after your father's tragic death as a cover to commit you to a psychiatric facility permanently. Once you're locked away inside, they will have complete, unquestioned control over your father's company, this house, and every single dollar you own. Olivia, please, you must turn around right now and run. A wave of icy resolve suddenly washed over my panic, freezing the tears before they could fall. I wasn't going to run, and I certainly wasn't going to let them win. Instead of driving toward the trap at my house, I spun my car around and headed straight toward the older, tree-lined streets of Midtown. I was going to see Arthur. Arthur had been my father's personal attorney and closest friend for over 30 years. After my father passed, David had gently but firmly steered me away from him, claiming Arthur had retired and then passed away. It was a lie. I had discovered months ago through an old holiday card that Arthur was very much alive, though I had never reached out, not wanting to upset David. Now, I practically burst through the heavy oak doors of his modest office. Arthur looked up from his desk, his eyes widening in complete shock at my disheveled, breathless appearance. Before he could speak, I laid my phone on his desk, showing him the live security feed. As I explained the forged power of attorney and the waiting transport team, Arthur's face hardened from shock to a deep, calculating anger. He leaned back, a cold smile touching his lips. "Olivia," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Your father was a brilliant businessman, and he knew David's character far better than you did. He never trusted him. Before he died, we secretly structured a legal poison pill deep inside your family trust. The second David tries to transfer the estate deed or company assets using that forged power of attorney, it won't work. Instead, it will instantly trigger a full forensic audit." Arthur leaned forward, tapping the folders on his desk. "But there is something even David doesn't know," he continued, his eyes glittering with cold satisfaction. "Your father's real estate firm isn't the goldmine David thinks it is anymore. Over the last 3 years, David has been secretly bleeding the business dry, funneling corporate funds into high-risk offshore investments that have completely collapsed. He has accumulated over $3 million in hidden commercial debt, all of which is currently tied directly to the parent company's legal liabilities." My jaw dropped. $3 million. "Yes," Arthur nodded. "And here is the beautiful part of your father's setup. The trust dictates that if anyone attempts to seize control of the estate through unauthorized or fraudulent power of attorney, all personal assets and cash reserves are immediately partitioned into an untouchable private fund for you. The perpetrator, however, legally assumes sole operational directorship, and with it, personal liability for all outstanding corporate debts. By trying to steal your home today, David isn't securing a fortune. He is signing his own financial death warrant." A fierce, empowered smile spread across my face. The terrified widow was gone. In her place stood a woman ready for justice. "Then let's give him exactly what he wants," I said. Arthur immediately called the local precinct. Within 20 minutes, we had coordinated with 2 plainclothes police officers. We registered a silent alarm and reported a burglary in progress at my address, giving us the perfect legal cover. With Arthur in the passenger seat and the officers trailing closely behind us, I started the car and drove back home to face them. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside, the click of the latch echoing through the quiet foyer. David and Evelyn froze in the living room, their faces twisting in sudden panic before David quickly masked it with a tight, nervous smile. "Olivia," he stammered, stepping forward. "You're back early. Your flight?" "I never boarded, David," I said, my voice ice cold. Before he could respond, a man in a sharp suit emerged from the study. It was their smug attorney, holding the folder with the forged power of attorney. Olivia," the lawyer said smoothly. "I'm glad you're here. We were actually just reviewing some urgent estate matters. As your husband's legal counsel, I must inform you that David has assumed power of attorney over your family assets, effective immediately." "I don't think so," Arthur's voice boomed from behind me. He stepped into the light, causing David's lawyer to gasp in recognition. Arthur didn't waste a second. He opened his briefcase and handed David's attorney a certified copy of the real, final trust agreement. "Read page 12, Arthur commanded. The smug lawyer began to read, and within seconds, every ounce of color drained from his face. He turned completely pale, his hands trembling. "What is it?" David snapped, sensing the shift. "What does it say?" The lawyer swallowed hard, looking at David with pure horror. "By executing those forged documents to seize the estate, you just legally assumed personal liability for $3 million in corporate debt. Her personal assets and this house are completely protected. You owe everything, David." Before they could even move, the plainclothes officers stepped forward quickly. The cuffs clicked loudly around David and Evelyn's wrists as the officers led them away in absolute silence. They were facing multiple felony charges, including grand larceny, forgery, and elder abuse, which ultimately secured them lengthy prison sentences. The smug attorney quickly scrambled to distance himself, leaving them to drown in the millions of dollars of debt they had so greedily tried to steal from me. With Arthur's guidance, I successfully liquidated the failing real estate business, wiping out the corporate liabilities while preserving my father's true wealth. I sold the stressful suburban estate and bought a breathtaking, peaceful cottage in Carmel, overlooking the blue waters of the Pacific Ocean. I brought Maria with me, hiring her as my estate manager and dearest friend. Together, we finally found the safety and peace we had deserved for years, watching the ocean waves wash away the shadows of the past. I was no longer a victim. I was finally the author of my own beautiful, independent destiny. But now, I am incredibly curious about you who listened to my story today. If you had found yourself in my shoes, would you have confronted them immediately at the house? Or would you have played the quiet, long game to trap them just like I did? You are watching this video from now, so I can see exactly how far Olivia's story has reached. And before you go, I am leaving 2 other incredible stories